This is going to be a fast gardening tip on how to get your tomatoes to ripen faster. If it's earlier in the season, there's really nothing you can do. You just have to have patience. But if it's later in the season, you're starting to get those cold nights that your tomatoes don't like, and you still have a lot of green tomatoes left on your plants, there's a few things we can do to make these ripen quicker so we get that one final harvest. Check out this guy over here. So I got some ripe tomatoes near the bottom. But if you come up, I have some decent sized ones. I want to make sure that these are ripe before the frost comes and kills these plants. And as you can see too, the cooler weather is not great for the tomatoes. So they're starting to get to the end of their lifespan. So step one, if you're growing indeterminate tomatoes, you have a single vine coming up if you've kept up with your pruning throughout the season. And over here is the top of our plant. This is the growing point for this tomato. This is going to keep growing vertically. We don't want that. We want to focus the energy into ripening these fruits. So what we're going to do is top it off. I'm going to go right here on the main stem and chop it off. With that top gone, now this plant is not going to be growing vertically anymore. If you've been pruning these correctly, you do not have these suckers. You've been popping these suckers off throughout the season. So just take another look, go through the stem, and try to find any suckers, and make sure all those suckers are gone. This indeterminate tomato vine is now topped off, so it can't grow vertically, and it cannot grow sideways because all the suckers are gone. That means all the energy is focused on this main stem. Now, I like leaving a lot of my tomatoes on the vine before I eat them, especially these giant crimsons. When they start to get really red and soft, that's when they taste the best. But having these down here is kind of slowing this plant down and making it so these aren't going to grow as fast. They're not going to ripen as quick. So the next step here is going to be to get rid of all these tomatoes. There's a couple green ones down here. I'm not too concerned with these. These are a waste of energy anyway. They're not going to get any bigger. This one looks halfway decent down here, but I'm willing to sacrifice that one. So I'm going to go. I'm not going to just pick the tomatoes. I'm going to cut the whole stem off, the whole cluster. And then I'm going to go back. I'm going to do it to all these clusters that have ripe tomatoes on them, so there's nothing but greens left. Down to my decent greens that I'd like to grow a little bit more and turn red. So moving on to the next step, we're going to start hacking up this plant. All these leaves below this first set of fruit right here are absolutely useless to this plant. So that's one of the pruning methods too. If you're just pruning throughout the season and you pick these tomatoes and there's no fruits left here, you always cut these leaves off all the way down to just below the first set of fruit. So here's my actually double-stemmed tomato pruning technique I started with. But here is the main stem of this vine. So I'm going to follow this up till I get to the first branch sticking out. And we're just going to chop it off. That, even found a sucker hiding in there. Going to get rid of that. And I'm just going to keep moving up the vine and cutting off all these branches till I get to the first set of tomatoes. So we are currently naked all the way up to the first set of green tomatoes. Now I'm just going to go through, and any of these nasty looking dying disease leaves, we're going to do the same thing. We're either going to cut off the whole branch or just cut it off where it's diseased. At this point in the season, I'm not too worried. I'm just going to take the whole branches off. Looking pretty clean now. Now I'm going to go in here. You see these little guys? These are not going to do anything. They might take energy from the plant to try to grow, but they're not going to grow. So what we do here, we're just going to get rid of all those. Then you see a little extra stem up there. Little guy hiding back there. Look at this little guy. He's gone. And you see what we're left with here? We have the stem coming out holding the tomatoes. And we got two decent tomatoes here. I'm even going to take this guy here. A little above the fruits, but that's unnecessary. I always like to start at the bottom and work up. Now that we're good here, we're going to keep going up. And I notice this little stem with these dead tomatoes on here. That's a waste. That's gone. I see this one in the cluster doesn't look that great. Gonna get rid of that tomato. These three look good. I'm gonna keep these three, but we're gonna do the same thing we did with the other one. And any foliage or branches on this tomato cluster stem is gonna go. Looking good there. Moving up. Same thing here. That one's kind of small. That does not have enough time to grow in the month before the first frost. So that one's going to go as well. And I'm just going to keep these two. Moving along, getting towards the top. I see this little flower cluster here. We don't want any more flowering. There is not enough time in this final month for those flowers to actually turn into tomatoes. So all those stems, gone. Our fall pruning is now complete. We got rid of all that extra stuff on this plant, so it can't grow up or out anymore. All the focus is on these fruits. As compared to this one, look how bushy that one is. I have to do that one. Don't feel bad when you do this. These plants are going to die pretty quick. These 50-degree nights are not great for tomatoes. Their days are numbered. So I'm probably get 7 more tomatoes out of this plant, but that's probably more than I'd get if I left all these other ones on here. At this point in year 2, you're going to want to cut back on watering your plants. It'll stress them out and kind of force them to ripen up those tomatoes because they realize they're going to die soon. And just like any other plant, the more you harvest, the more tomatoes you're going to get. With this pruning, this tomato plant is going to want to create more tomatoes. The problem with that is we already cut off all the buds. It can't grow up or out to make any more flowers, so it has to focus that energy on these remaining fruits. A plant's only purpose in life is to make fruits with seeds and disperse them so the next generation can grow. Follow these tips and get the last round of tomatoes before fall kicks in and takes them out and you have to say goodbye. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and thanks for watching.